And continuing on with my top 30 favorite TV shows of all time, we already got through 1/3 of my list. Now here's the second third. And you knew that if Frasier was going to be in my top 30 favorite TV shows, you knew that Cheers couldn't be too far away. But sure enough, here it is at number 19.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see the troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
Yeah, possibly the greatest thing, not even possibly, the greatest thing to come out of Boston. Suck it, Boston Tea Party. Suck it, Boston Celtics. Suck it, Red Sox. Suck it, New England Patriots. And I can see my audience from Boston slowly but surely walking away, but I don't care, man. Cheers is the best thing that came out of Boston. I'm sorry. I just have to say it, But yeah, what more do I need to say about Cheers that hasn't already been said already? If you don't know what the show is about, it's basically, it's set in the Boston bar, which is actually called the Bull and Finch Pub in real life, and, it follows a group of locals who meet to drink, relax, socialize, and escape from their day-to-day issues. And it features a cast that includes people like Ted Danson, Shelley Long, Rhea Perlman, George Wendt, John Ratzenberger, Kelsey Grammer, Woody Harrelson, Kirstie Alley, Bebe Neuwirth, Nicholas Colsanto. Just a phenomenal cast, a phenomenal show that really was one of those shows back in the day that, it's interesting how how television worked back in the day, because keep in mind that this show probably doesn't make it on the air if NBC doesn't give it the ultimate benefit of the doubt. Because remember, this show was almost canceled within its first season because the series was one of the lowest rated shows on TV. I think it was actually the last ranked show when it first premiered back in 1982. But they kept it on the air, and sure enough, it ended up winning multiple Emmy Awards. It ended up getting better time slot positioning. NBC put more time and effort to get the word out there, and they built a great lineup around it, which eventually led to the creation of the must-see TV lineup. And of course, you have a lineup that included the Cosby Show, the Family Ties, Night Court, Hill Street Blues, and from that point on, Cheers went on to become the blockbuster hit that it was, to the point that when it ended in 1993, it was still the most watched show one of the most watched shows on TV. So really, they could have kept going with it if they really wanted to, but 11 seasons, and it really turned out to be one of the great TV shows of all time. And like I said, man, there's really not much more to explain why that is. I think everybody that's watched Cheers knows exactly what makes Cheers so special. It's because you have this great camaraderie of characters. You got these great set bits of comedy, great slapstick comedy at times. And it's not afraid to get serious at times. There are times when there are elements when. There are times when the heaviest moments of the show do come into play here. Like, I always remember, my favorite episode of the show is when Diane leaves for good. Like, she leaves the show after 5 seasons. And, the whole dynamic of the show of Sam and Diane was the big thing that was really pushing a lot of people at the beginning of the show's run during those first 5 years. Just like, will they get together? Will they not get together? It was that, it was really one of those great relationships in TV history. And the great thing about this is that they set up this big moment when they're supposed to get married, and then Diane decides to go off and finish her novel. And the great thing that it does with this episode is that it plays with your head, because each of the last season finales that had aired up to that point had set up or teased that Diane was leaving and going back and doing something else, but she would always come back. She would eventually return. And what I like in this one is that they do the complete opposite. They make it seem like this isn't Diane's last time she'll be on the show, with her telling Sam that she'll be back in 6 months, because we had seen this done before at this point, but the fact that they were really saying it and just letting it build up, that this is really setting up to be the last time we're going to see these two together. And I like the fact that I mean, it's a well done scene. It just works so well. Not just for the fact that Ted Danson and Shelley Long are just great actors, but the fact that it ends on this great little side subplot where, not little side plot, like a little alternate universe where Sam and Diane did actually get married, they've gotten old together, and it's a nicely done scene. You forget that this show is not only really funny, but it's also really a great show where it can really tug at your heartstrings. Is no matter how it's at a time that you don't really expect it. And of course, everyone thought that once Shelley Long left, Cheers was kind of dead in the water. But then Kirstie Alley comes in, and the show's just as great as ever. Not only is the drama work great, the comedy is top notch. I mean, so many great, hilarious episodes. The Thanksgiving episode comes to mind. My favorite is one that doesn't usually get talked about as much, as when, Frasier sees one of his first wife, Nanny G, played by Emma Thompson. She's now become like this big children's entertainer, and it leads into this big scuffle with him and Lilith, and it's a really funny episode. Emma Thompson's usually will always be great whenever she's in anything, but it has probably one of the funniest endings ever, where Bebe Neuwirth's Lilith just has enough and just beats the shit out of her while she's confessing while Nanny G's still confessing that she still loves Frasier. And it's a great episode. It doesn't get talked about as much, but if you want a straightforward, hilarious episode that is just so pitch perfect, an old-fashioned wedding when Woody gets married to Kelly is great, because it just feels like it reminds me a lot of the restaurant episode of Frasier. Just great bits of just great comedy all throughout there. It's taking place in one single location in particular. This one, it's taking place in the kitchen of the place that they're getting married at, and you just have all these shenanigans going on. Like, there's all these great bits where Woody's trying to see Kelly, and like there's a part they're trying to get to the they're trying to take care of the priest because he ends up dying in the middle of the kitchen. Carla keeps getting knocked out of the house and all that. Like, all these different crazy things are happening, and it's just really, really funny stuff. And it has probably one of the great finales, if not the greatest finale in TV history. It wraps up everything on a nice note. And when George Wendt passed away not too long ago, his great dialogue to Sam in that episode is just so well done, and it has probably one of the great renditions of the Cheers song ever to wrap the show up. It's just, I've talked about the show long enough. I've done videos talking about it. I've talked about it so much on the website as well. If you don't know why Cheers is such a great show, then quite frankly, I really don't know what else to tell you, man. This is such a great, great show. It's no wonder it's number 19 on my favorite TV shows of all time. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Cheers. If you want to hear my thoughts on King of the Hill, number 20 on my list, check out the video in the corner, check out the playlist, and I'll see you guys next time.